1984 by George Orwell was a great book that led me to think deeply about a lot of stuff. In this vlog, I chose to answer one of the simple questions that was presented in the discussion board. Which man is right when O'Brien says that the pros will never be able to succeed in revolting, while Winston sees the pros as the only hope for change? What does the party do to discourage rebellion among the pros, and why are these techniques successful? Are there any parallels between the lives of the pros and our own lives? Before I start, let's look at the scene in the movie to understand my points better. This is the scene when O'Brien says that the pros will never succeed in the revolt, and Winston opposes him.
Or perhaps you return to your old idea that the proletarians will arise. Put it out of your mind. They're helpless animals. Humanity is the party.
I don't care. In the end, they'll beat you. Sooner or later, they'll tear you to pieces.
In the movie scene, we see O'Brien telling Winston to put the idea that the pros will succeed in revolting out from his mind, because they'll never be able to. In my opinion, O'Brien is right. The pros will never succeed in revolting against the government. We see in the book that pros didn't get any education and were left alone to do their own stuff. In history, we see education as the start of a revolution. Most of the time, educated people realized that something was wrong about the government and came together to go against it. Then, the educated people tried to inform the people about the unjust government and started the revolution against the government. However, there were no educated leaders to act out because none of them were educated. The pros couldn't distinguish anything about the government. They seemed as if they didn't have any interest about it. Secondly, the government didn't mind what the pros did. In a bad sense, the government looked at them as animals instead of humans. O'Brien referred them as helpless animals also. The pros were content about the things they had. They were allowed to have contact with men and women and had lottery and drinks that satisfied them. They didn't have any reason to revolt. They think very simply in the way that they believe if they did good, they were rewarded, and if they did bad, they didn't get any life-supporting necessities. The satisfaction of the instincts were blocking them to look at the reality. In my opinion, I think there are some similarities between the pros and ourselves that live in the world today. The education are limited to the people in the sense that the government tries to make people believe that the opposite types of governments are bad. For example, in my country and US, the majority of the people might learn that communism and socialism is bad and that it gives disadvantages to the country. On the other hand, China and North Korea might learn that liberal democracy and free economy is bad. Like the government in 1984 did, it sets what is bad and wrong and makes the people believe it even though it may not be wrong. It's the same as making people believe that war is peace. Secondly, many governments use entertainment to make people focus on something other than the government. Movies, sports, alcohol are all means of turning the people's head. In my home country, South Korea, a lot of times, the government uses top star scandal to hide news about a government's issue. A lot of top stars receive disadvantage in their career due to the government. The government pays the news company to make the scandal the headline. I'm confident that other countries will do the same. The government hides the truth using entertainment, and I think it is important to see what might be behind. The author of the book 1984, George Orwell, wrote the book to warn the danger of communism and a totalitarian government, especially the Soviets. He made the governments very extreme, and the government inside 1984 might look like a totally different environment we live in. However, we can find some similarity with the world we live in today. Through the book, we are able to see how today's government use different factors to possess their power. Like O'Brien said, the government doesn't exist for everybody's good, but instead, it exists to keep their power and authority. I hope you enjoyed my video and agreed on some of my opinions. I used a lot of scenes from the movie to give you guys a better side picture. I greatly recommend you guys to watch the movie. It greatly gives you a picture of the setting of the texts and helps understand the story better. Thanks for watching.